we sort of think, well, hang on, the general public probably aren't as educated as what we have to be. And so we're across every little detail, and so we have found that we've had to explain to the customers that obviously restrictions mean that we can only have 10 people in one space. It can be a table of 10, you can't mingle, all these sorts of things, So, yeah, but I think as this opening up has gone on, people have understood these rules a bit more than what they did initially.
Today on Dirty Linen, we are talking to Sean Kierce from Ladro Pizza restaurants in Fitzroy and Prahran. I wanted to talk to Sean or someone from the Ladro family because I'm getting a lot of people writing to me at the moment or contacting me on social media, letting me know which restaurants they are loving from a COVID safety point of view and which restaurants they're finding somewhat alarming because they don't seem to be following the rules. One of the restaurants that keeps popping up as doing all the right things is Ladro. So I didn't know, you probably don't know that, Sean, but
No.
people have been telling me how well you guys are doing. So I wanted to, I guess, congratulate you and find out what you're doing, why you're doing it, and whether you think it is keeping customers coming back.
Well, that's great, Dani. Thanks for letting me know, and I'm really thrilled about that. I think the main reason why that we've been active in COVID safe is our staff at both places, and it's really been driven by them. And I'm really thankful for that. That both our managers, Joe in Prahran and James or Jimmy in Fitzroy, have really put their heads down and from the very start as well, and done all the research for us, which has been absolutely perfect. So I think we started off on the right foot, making sure that we were COVID safe, and I was very lucky that they were able to educate me on it as well. So yeah, it's been driven by the staff, which I think is the best way to do it, because then all the other staff get on board as well. And I think initially it was because of the unknown and a little bit of being sort of scared of what COVID may offer up to everybody. So we were ultra safe, and we were sort of we almost sort of barricaded the restaurant from the customers in that we'd put up tables and chairs and boxes of wine and all that sort of stuff, so no one could get past 2 meters in the front door, and then that's all they could go. So it was sort of like an us and them mentality to actually start with, and of course we made that look presentable, shop displays and whatnot. But we really want to keep it out, and the protection of the staff was probably one of the main things to start with, and then it's just evolved from there.
Yeah, I came down to Prahran to, I pretended I was there for the pizza, and the pizza indeed was excellent, but I was really there for the Negroni in a jar. And when I came in for my undercover Negroni sourcing mission, it was very, it's exactly as you describe. The staff were behind a table. There was no way of getting within 1.5 meters of anybody. The signage was very clear. And I think you also were one of the first restaurants that I noticed that were doing a sort of drive-by pickup service where, and also I remember, you guys also making a point of saying that, your pizza did not touch human hands. It was straight from the oven. I mean, obviously hands make it, but then once it's cooked at 400 degrees, it's straight into the box. So nobody's touched it. So I guess it was something that was really front and center of the way that you were positioning yourselves as well.
Yeah, and talking about the degrees as well. Well, goes up to somewhere sort of 400-ish degrees, and nothing's going to survive in that temperature, even if it's only for a couple of minutes as such. So we actually thought that that's a really good message to put to people, because I think at the very start, everyone, and it's so hard to remember back then because it seems so long ago, but only like yesterday. Amazing, and I think it was just we just wanted to make our customers feel with the drive up that everyone had options. They could either come into the shop if they felt comfortable, they could and order face to face, they could social distance, of course, or they could get on an app and order anonymously, and then when they get to either the restaurants, they can make a call and we could run the food out to them and hand it through the front window, or put in the boot, or however they wanted to do it, or they could get it delivered as well. So I think having those options really made people feel comfortable that they didn't have to get out of the car, or if they wanted to get out of the car, they could come up and have a little bit of interaction briefly. And we often found we had great short chats with people. How you going? You're surviving well, and off they go. It was just lovely to see some people get out of the car, come into us. Other people want to stay in the car, but everyone was really happy and was delighted with what we were doing at the time. So,
And as you've reopened the restaurants for dine-in trade, how have you found that transition? Have you found that your customers are wanting to push the rules or not really understanding the rules, or are you finding that they're grateful for the way that you've set up the restaurant and your systems of service?
yeah, I think we're lucky, as that we had that dress rehearsal in June for that short period of time, and we we were able to almost nail it then. I think. Obviously, there's a few little things that we needed to improve on, but this time round, it's been an onslaught, and it's been from 0 to 100 in faster than a Ferrari, and it's just been amazing. And we've just made sure that we've really spaced our tables out more than what they had to. I mean, you don't have a choice really, because you've only can have 10 in a space. Even outdoors as well, we've got extra space that we can use. In Fitzroy, we've been given some extra footpath as well as some car spaces at the front. We haven't actually put furniture in the car spaces because we just wanted to ease into it. It's more of a long game, I think, rather than a short game. And we're lucky that we can use the car spaces out the front in Gertrude Street until March the 31st. And in Prahran, we've been very lucky that the council has allowed for restaurants in that area to close the road in front of our spaces, where we can have extra people as well. So we haven't actually used full potential of those spaces as such, and that's because we just wanted to ease into it and make sure that we were doing things correctly. And we've had to say no to a lot of people. We've had waiting lists, which we haven't had for a long time in the restaurant. All that sort of stuff. So it's been really hard for the staff to manage, but everyone's been fantastic. Most people have been really good. We've got a new ordering system, order at table system, and that's had its teething problems as well. And we explain these things to people, and everyone generally has been absolutely great with the whole system. So there have been the customers who ring up and say, "Oh, can I get? Oh, here you can have 20 people. Can we have a table of 20?" And we're to start with, we're a little bit, huh? What do you mean? No one, you can't have a table of 20. There's no way. This is what we think to ourselves. But then we sort of think, well, hang on, the general public probably aren't as educated as what we have to be. And so we're across every little detail. And so we have found that we've had to explain to the customers that obviously restrictions mean that we can only have 10 people in one space. It can be a table of 10, you can't mingle, all these sorts of things, So, yeah, but I think as the pandemic, as this opening up has gone on, people now have understood these rules a bit more than what they did initially.
Well, I think, perhaps we're getting there, but I think there are a lot of restaurants that, whether it's flagrant or inadvertent, they are also not understanding that you can only have 10 people in one space. There are a lot of restaurants who seem to think it's 20. It's really interesting, Sean, to hear you say that you think it's a long game, because what I'm seeing from some businesses is that they want to pack people in. They really want to have some money flowing through the tills. And you can, of course, understand that desperation to, gear your business back up again. But I feel like, if you really do see it as a long game, then you would also have in your mind that we really don't want a third wave, and we really don't want to shut down again. So, I mean, how are you sort of thinking about that?
Well, I the start of the pandemic, when we shut down, and I think I coped all right. Then we opened up again, and I was a bit sort of nervous about how it was going to go and whatnot. And then we shut down again, and I found that incredibly distressing because not just for myself but for the staff. They had sort of waited so long to get back to work, and not everyone was on JobKeeper. We had some staff who were just doing 3 or 4 hours a week, and it was very difficult for them. So they were so excited when we came back in June to open up, and then when we had to close again, it was just, you could just sort of see the life just, everyone was just sort of deflated. It was just so deflating. We had to go back to what we were doing but before, and it was quieter and there wasn't as much excitement about it, and there's a big excitement about the first time round, and you've obviously touched on that with other people in your podcast series, and so this time round, I'm really conscious that I don't want that to happen again. So we just want to make sure that we're doing what we can. And yes, I see other operators doing things, and being in the industry, you don't want to go up to them and say, "Hey, what are you doing?" It's a very difficult thing to actually. Do I need to be the local cop, or do I just need to concentrate on what I'm doing and what we're doing and do it well? We had inspectors come around to Gertrude Street last night just to make sure that we were doing the right thing. They weren't wanting to fine anyone. They just wanted to make sure that we understood what the rules were. We've been open for a week now, which was great. So I'm hoping that there's more compliance people out there just walking around and chatting to people and saying, hey, it's not 1.5 meters between the tabletops, it's 1.5 meters between the backs of people, it's the chairs as such, that sort of stuff. The outdoor rules are 50 people, but you don't have to get 50 people in this small space. You should only get this amount of people in the space that you have. Maybe it's 20, maybe it's whatever, So
Who were the officers? Like, were they from? Where were they from?
look, I'm not sure. I wasn't there. Just my manager just told me earlier today, actually. Just when just on a debriefing. So I'd imagine they were from the Department of Health. I would imagine, yeah. I don't think they'll get from the council, but they had signage as well for. Do you need any more signage? Can we help you set it up and all that sort of stuff? They're really helpful. So which is great, because I haven't seen anyone at all throughout this pandemic at all come in to inspect anything. There's thousands of places out there as such. So it was really good to see. So I was happy. I was happy for that. Yeah.
I mean, do you feel sort of, I guess, disgruntled as a business owner when people create an uneven playing field by putting more people into their venue than they should?
Yeah, totally. But I mean, it's not just that; it's the whole wage issue as well, and all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of unfair playing field things out there. And you can look at it and from afar, and I think you've just got to look at what you're doing in your own business and just work on that and make sure. Don't worry about what's happening next door as such. So I mean, unless it's blatantly ruining the area as such, look, there was an incident in the first opening where on Gertrude Street there was some festivities happening on the street from other traders, and I just stood out. It was a Saturday afternoon, a beautiful Saturday winter afternoon, and something was happening down the road, and the person who was there's playing some music was sort of joking, oh, you've got to keep 1.5 meters apart, and there's 50 people outside the shop, and I'm just like, oh, really, and then happened up the road from us again, and I had to go and say something. I said, look, this is just not right, and then the police came along, which is great, and they broke it up and whatnot, but yeah, there was just that feeling in the air that we've beaten this, and then I think 9 days later we're back into second lockdown, and I was like, I could sort of see that was going to happen, but this time round it seems to be a little bit different. I think traders are most of them are trying to do the right thing, and whether it's a misunderstanding or not, I know that the rules didn't come out until the last minute, the 11th hour. And so it was a little bit hard to know, can we have one person per 2 square metres or one person per 4 square metres outside, and little things like that. And the information is not as readily available, you have to dig, to dig for it as such, and it's the onus is put back on the operator rather than saying, well, here's from whoever you get it from. Here's the information sheet. It's right here in front of you, but yeah, you have to go and find the information yourself, So
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. And I mean, I guess you mentioned you've got these engaged staff members at each restaurant, which have sort of taken that role on. A lot of businesses wouldn't have someone who is in that position. Perhaps as people whose first language isn't English. Obviously, it's more challenging. Less experienced operators. So there are all kinds of, I guess, barriers or things that make it more difficult for some people to understand the rules and then to apply them. But yeah, it's I feel like Melbourne, better than anywhere else in Australia, should understand what the stakes are.
oh yeah, and look, I'm hoping that's going to continue as well throughout summer, and that we really do need to be mindful of what's going on and how lucky we are. We've been incredibly lucky, with us being able to get the numbers down. Politically, it's difficult to comment on, but just the way that everyone's buckled down and done the right thing, and 6 days in a row with zero figures, and I don't think we can be complacent. I think we just need to say, okay, we need to keep this going, and aim for the end of summer to still be really low, and I think the worst thing is for me anyway, is that to go back into a third lockdown would just be horrendous, and I think it'd be terrible for a lot of other people as well. We're at Ladro, we've been so lucky that we've been able to, pivot, if you want to call it that. We've always offered takeaway, so it wasn't that hard for us to reimagine what we had to do. But I feel for those businesses that didn't have that opportunity that we've had. Just the food we do is okay for takeaway, and some little coffee shops, and those other businesses who we were saying before that maybe English isn't a first language. How do they survive? How did they survive? How have they survived through this? And I can understand them wanting to say, oh, look, we just got to get the money. We haven't had any support from the government whatsoever. It's a very difficult. It's a big melting pot, really. Of emotions, and of them just being desperate to grab the money. So you can understand it, but it's not the right way to go. So
Absolutely. So, Sean, through that enormous grind that was lockdown number 2, how did you keep yourself sane personally?
Well, on a couple of different levels. Luckily, we had an initiative called Smart Meals, which was dreamed up, brilliant concept, put into action by Street Smart, and a guy, Adam Robinson, was the main guy behind that. And just briefly, Smart Meals, Adam thought that he could use unused restaurant spaces, or that weren't being used to their full potential, to produce meals for homeless. So there was some funding coming to the restaurant to produce meals daily, to then give to an agency who would then distribute them to either homeless people in in hotel accommodation, or to people just off the street. So that was one thing, and I was able to engage every day by delivering that food to St Mary's House of Welcome on Brunswick Street.
What was that like?
Look, it was fantastic, and fantastic in the way that I learnt a lot more about what's actually going on out there during this pandemic, and the amount of meals that they were receiving. They have gone from a charity support, homeless support agency, to a distribution centre, and they were distributing thousands of meals a day to hotels for the homeless, as well as they used to see probably 40 people a day who would come through their doors, to about 120. So it tripled, and the social workers there who were able to get through the daily grind of dealing with these people, and they, even the social workers, thought, look, is great that we've got something to do, we've got something to focus on. So all this things that's happening underneath that we don't necessarily see on a day-to-day level was quite inspiring to actually be involved with. was great to be involved with the chef there, Dougie, who was welcoming and always had feedback, and everyone was really cheerful, and I think they were really happy that they were able to get in there and contribute to what was going on underneath the pandemic, and that sort of thing had to keep on going, so it was great to be involved in that. But and then the other great thing about Smart Meals as well is that it also helped a couple of our temporary visa holder chefs in Gertrude Street to uh, have somebody to get up for every day, come to work, make some takeaway food, but then at the end of the shift prepare 80 or 90 meals for the next day for me to take up to St Mary's House of Welcome in the morning. So that was great, being a support to them as well, and that was it was great to be involved in that initiative.
It's such a clever scheme,
Oh,
like, just to create that
it's
triangle
so
of
simple.
assistance where
Yeah,
it's so simple, but it is so clever and, yeah, it's yeah, it just does good at every level. Like, I love those things where they have a few different touch points and they just leave a little bit of goodness and sparkle, at each of them. It's just, yeah, really, really excellent. And I guess also, I'm sure, you get a bit of perspective on the troubles of the restaurant industry, which are, not to be diminished, but when you then, realize that there are people who are homeless, who are doing it even tougher, I'm sure that, yeah, just, I guess, lets you shine a bit of a different light on things.
yeah. I mean, that as well. We've been the restaurant industry has been hit hard, um, and I just looked at other our suppliers who their trade was also diminished by 60, 70, 80%, maybe even more. The baker, the milkman, the butcher, the fruit and veg guy, all these people, all that we've all had long term relationships with, and so it was great to be able to support them as well. We had to buy stuff for Smart Meals. We still have to buy produce for our takeaway and heat at home menus and whatnot. So it was great to be able to think, well, through Smart Meals, in some way, I'm still helping down the chain as well, and because a lot of suppliers haven't been talked about, even landlords, and we've lucky we've got a great landlord in Fitzroy who's been really really supportive, and so but even she was hurting, so yeah, it's a, I suppose the Smart Meals in that area has allowed me to sort of think about all these other people as well. Normally in the restaurant, you
Yeah.
go, oh yeah, God, the butcher's calling for me to give him some money again, God, but you guys turn around the other way, going, oh my God, I really have to pay this bill, and it's made me think a little bit differently about the whole supply chain and the amount of people that the restaurant industry supports. It's quite amazing, but that's not just the restaurant industry. There's every industry. The support that goes into that and the infrastructure underneath it all is way more sophisticated and complicated than I think I've ever given real thought to. So
Oh, that's so interesting. So
yeah,
it's sort of like awoke a compassion in you.
yeah. Well, look. Yeah, I think with Street Smart, we've been involved with Street Smart for 17 years or 16 years or something, and I said to Adam, why did you just pick Ladro? And he said, look, you've been one of our longest supporters in Melbourne, so it just sort of seemed right that we did pick you. And it's only going to be for 4 to 6 weeks anyway. This is what he said back to me at the end of March. He said, it's only going to be for 4 to 6 weeks. And then, he emailed me, start of October, and he said, look, Sean, I'm really sorry, but it's going to have to end at the end of September, end of October. And I'm just like, man, look, I'm so grateful. This has just been the best experience for the restaurant and for me. That hey, I would have been happy with 4 to 6 weeks, but this has just been brilliant. So during that 7 month period, it really did give me a time to reflect because we had to slow down. Uh, we weren't. I mean, yes, a lot of rushing around, but once you had things sort of set, you could sort of just get back into a daily rhythm and think about these things and whatnot. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, one thing that you've become expert at is dealing with change. And on the weekend, we're going to have another announcement of the next easing. And it feels like with all these days of zero cases that Melbourne and Victoria are in a pretty good place to take the next step. Um, how do you how do you think about that? Is it like are you kind of like dreading that you have to get your head around something else, or are you looking forward to more easing? Does it make you nervous? Like what kind of emotions do you have?
Yeah, I'm not dreading it. I'm a bit, I know what happened last time is that, we went from 20 people, we were talking about 20 people inside to maybe 50 or something if you had the space for it and whatnot. It wasn't going to affect us really because we didn't have the big spaces that some venues have. But yeah, I suppose with a little bit of trepidation, but still very excited that we're able to utilise more of our space. But also a bit nervous as well because there's the issue of you know, the staff, and I know that in the last 7 days it's been very stressful for them just to get systems up and running in a new ordering system in Prahran, and all the teething problems that actually come with it, and then the sort of next influx of people wanting Christmas parties and whatnot because that's starting to happen now, and we've been able to sort of fend them off a little bit at this stage by um, you know, people want to book and people want to come to us, and it's just absolutely fantastic. And we're so grateful that people want to support us. But we've been able to sort of say, look, we can't guarantee anything because we just don't know what's ahead of us. We don't know how many people we can have in here. We don't know what the table sizes are. We don't know what the regulations will be. What are the distancing rules? What are the, I don't even know whether we can have recorded music in here so you can get up and dance and all that sort of stuff. There's all these things that we have taken for granted in the past. That Yeah, so I think we're just going to take it slowly again, and we don't have to have that amount of people in the restaurant. Be our choice, but I'm sure we will because we want to welcome people back in. So it'll be interesting just to hear what they have to say. I'm not really across what may or may not happen. So I'd imagine we might go up to 20 people in a space if we've got the size for it. I don't know. Is that your understanding?
Well, I don't know. I don't think so because regional they went to 40 people altogether, but still only 10 in a space. So I feel like the change on Sunday will be to align metro and regional. So that won't make any difference to a lot of businesses simply because they don't have various spaces. But that's a hunch. I guess when we had the last easing, we hadn't had all these days of zero. But I don't know. I just feel I feel nervous having seen, crowded restaurants, crowded beaches, people not taking, I don't know, just a bit of a vibe of, well, I guess parallel vibes. One vibe is, it's over, we've done it, let's party. And the other one is that more slow and steady. This is where you sanitize. This is the QR code. This is where you put your mask. So I feel like there's a real divergence in how people are dealing with things. And I'm really heartened to hear that you had someone come around to Ladro and with a positive frame of like, how can we help you do the right thing? I think that's fantastic. And hopefully there's a lot of that happening around the city, and that the people will, I guess, fall into line and do the right thing before the cases, sort of start to run away because we keep hearing that there's going to be virus still in the community. And of course there are people coming in to the city, whether they're, I don't know, like flight crew, freight people. Yeah, and soon there'll be people, people can come over the border and that'll only continue. So I hope that the compliance catches up to the situation.
Well, I suppose I just want to reinforce to everyone that it's a long game. It's not the short game. I think if we look at it as a short game, it's going to be a short game. I think we need to look at it as a long game, and if we do take it slowly, be conservative, look after everybody, then hopefully we'll we'll be okay. So
Very wise words. Well, thank you so much, Sean. It's really amazing to have a chat to you and to get your perspective. Certainly wish you all the best with Ladro and, feeding Melbourne some great pizza and pouring some great Negronis.
Yes. Well, Dani, thank you very much, and I've really enjoyed your podcast series throughout the pandemic, and I marvel at your energy and the amount of projects you're getting yourself involved in. So I think you've been a wonderful champion for the hospitality, and I know that you love food and restaurants, and it probably seems easy for you, but I just want to thank you and uh, uh, just to let you know that we're out there and we're enjoying your podcast and everything that you're doing for the restaurant industry. So thank you.
Thank you so much for saying that, Sean. I'm super embarrassed now, but it is because I love restaurants and
Yes,
I
I know.
love Melbourne, I love Victoria, I love Australia, I love restaurants, and I'm really glad that I can get back into them now. But yeah, thank you so much. Chat soon.
I'll see you for a sneaky Negroni.
Deal. This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about. We spend a week thrashing around each issue, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This is a Deep in the Weeds production.